Hello and welcome to the Backside Dig. My name is Tyler DeSena, and today I have a very special guest. It is Sacramento State offensive lineman and soon to be NFL draftee Jackson Slater. Jackson, how we doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Great. I'm very happy to have you. Excited. Obviously, got to watch you in Mobile, got to talk to you there a little bit. And I wanted to start off with that because obviously that's an interesting week. That's a lot of media presence, a lot of coaches in the building, a lot of other players that you're around that, are your teammates for that week and very likely that week only. The amount of guys that you see from that week. What was that like? I can imagine it's hectic and with only 3 days of practice and then an all-star game. How does that go?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really cool opportunity all around. Always been a goal for me to make to the Senior Bowl throughout my college career. So to have that opportunity and be able to go perform was really cool. Along with meeting all the guys, had great experiences with everyone I met there. Media and players alike, everyone really awesome, really great week overall. Glad to have gotten that opportunity.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like that's a lot of guys I've talked to, their big thing is just the ability to have that opportunity, but I can imagine it's stressful as well with just like how many different availabilities and things that you go through. But talking about moving past the Senior Bowl, what does your training regimen, your everyday look like now? Because that is obviously out of the way, but there's a lot coming up. And as you're leading into that draft season, what does it look like with meetings, workouts, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the next thing on the schedule is the combine. So I've been training at Exos in Scottsdale since like the beginning of the year. So kind of some offensive line stuff more focused, I would say, pre-Senior Bowl. Working with Mike Pollock there, he's been really good, and a great group of guys there as well. Overall. But now kind of moving into like pure combine prep overall. So, just running 40s, running, 5, 10, 5, stuff like that. The offensive line drills are turning more into, practicing the stuff we're going to end up doing at the combine in the position work segment. So definitely combine focus right now. But still mainly a lot of similar stuff we were doing pre-Senior Bowl as well. So
Yeah, and as for, some of that more physical work, I saw a video posted on your Twitter from almost a year ago now of you hitting 405 on the power clean.
yeah,
Is that number gone up at all? Have you worked at it? Like what is it looking like?
that was kind of I'd say the peak of my lifting in my opinion. Still gaining strength for sure, but I think a lot of that's kind of pure, you know, lifting for numbers stays in college a little bit. Just kind of based on what we've been doing here, it's a lot more speed and power compared to just trying to get as heavy as you can go. Um, so it's been kind of an interesting transition, I would say. As last 4 years, it's been like you show up in the winter and you're squatting as heavy as you can, you're power cleaning as much as you can, and it's kind of more transition into functional lifting, I would say, and staying healthy, working on your body, um, and it's been a fun transition. I think a lot of that stuff is really good for building a good foundation, but I think once guys get to this level, it's kind of assumed that you have a solid foundation. So it's been interesting, but I'm a fan of it. So
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's a big transition, like you said, moving into more functional strength exercises, trying to work on stuff that benefits you specifically as a lineman rather than, you as a weightlifter.
yeah,
But you have another kind of big transition that's been happening as of late, and that's the fact that a lot of teams want to see you at different spots on the line. A lot of left guard work in college, but now working in the Senior Bowl and beyond, it seems like a lot of work was also coming at center. Is that something that kind of came to you through teams talking to you and saying, "Hey, that's where we want to see you"? Do you think it was more of a measurements thing? What was the transition like trying to work in more of that center stuff?
Yeah, I think I'd say it was a little bit of both. It's kind of what I've been hearing the last probably 2 years or so is, you're probably more of a center at the next level. So actually, ended up getting a lot of reps there in practice this past season. Ended up basically being the two center all year. So that also came with taking reps like a two. So felt pretty comfortable there playing it in the Sac State offense, and then my goal at the Senior Bowl is to show I can play all three interior positions at a high level. And I think I went in there and did that. And I think, wherever a team sees me, whether it's guard or center, I think, you know, there's a lot of promise there for sure. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And you said that you got a lot of practice work in at center and like with the twos. Is that something you've done before last year? Or was it a big kind of transition to getting to snapping the ball consistently and kind of working at it?
yeah, I mean, it'd come up here and there where I get some center reps. Prior to this past season, but kind of dealt with some injuries in fall camp. And that kind of led to, me needing to be the for sure next guy to go in at center. So, yeah, I mean, wasn't too many growing pains, I would say. The movement and the snapping felt pretty fluid overall. I think just, still being able to get more reps there, feel more confident in how I move, is something I'm going to work on in the future for sure.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, depending on where you end up, it could be a different team that maybe doesn't want to see you at center at all, wants to just stick at guard. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of different work. But you've talked about you just mentioned like how you worked a little bit there and how working with the coaching staff, hearing that next level you might be a center. I kind of want to talk about that time at Sac State as a whole. How was that as like a learning experience working with those coaches, working with those guys? And how has that transition kind of been from, you're no longer a college, student athlete, and now you're moving towards this is going to be a professional lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, really great experience overall. I think, in my time there, I really tried to, treat everything like how a pro would. So, was never late to meetings, always getting extra work. Was always a pretty good student. So, just trying to make it as easy as possible on the staff there. And was fortunate enough to have the same offensive line coach all 4 years. Through a couple head coaching changes as well. So that tells you a thing or two about our O line coach there. He was doing a pretty good job. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stuff has transitioned really nicely. Technique wise and playbook wise. I think there's a lot of similar stuff going on between Sac State and at least what I saw at the Senior Bowl was pretty similar. So I think even though it was kind of a small school, I think a lot of characteristics and traits, not only playbook wise, but schedule wise, expectation wise, at Sac State transferred over well so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it shows up like on the film, watching, seeing you do a lot of stuff that next level NFL teams are doing with, mobility and getting you out in space and a lot of priority of getting these interior linemen, especially having guys who can move a lot more than just, trying to push guys off the line of scrimmage, which you're doing as well. I want to talk a little bit about, the last year here, your final year at Sac State and kind of a quarterback transition that was going on, moving on to Carson Conklin coming in as a freshman and starting. What was it like kind of working with him, like having protecting him back there and then that transition to him? What are the things you saw in him as, a young kid who's now coming in and starting a quarterback?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that has a bright future ahead. So again, I think it's definitely important to mention that he's like a young guy, like redshirt freshman at the time. Really, moving into a true starting role. And I think that comes with a lot of eyes on you. Even if you're young, I think a lot of people still will look to you as a leader if you're the quarterback of your team. And I think he handled it really well. Was a guy that I think made a lot of great plays as well as especially in communicating with the offensive line. I think he did a really good job as well. So I think he's got a bright future ahead. And it was fun kind of playing with him.
Great to hear. I mean, yeah, obviously had to mention him because it was a big transition year. He was an extremely young kid coming in, playing and putting up some good numbers, playing some good ball. So it was exciting to watch that, especially when watching you back for this interview and draft purposes. But I kind of want to move on to something a little bit different. I've got a few plays that I pulled up from last year and then also this Senior Bowl, and I kind of want to ask you some questions about those. So I'm going to pull one up right here, and I'm gonna start with something that probably you don't, you look at and you might sigh a little bit because of the fact that it's not game reps. It is a Senior Bowl rep. And I ask you specifically because a lot of people see these one-on-one reps in the Senior Bowl and they question, what does this have to do with the next level? You're never going to be blocking a guy one-on-one where none of your linemen are moving around you. And I'm just wondering, what is the kind of experience you kind of get from this rep? Are you trying to just kind of work the guy in front of you, have iron sharpen iron? Is there something that you classify as a win versus a loss? What are these reps kind of like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of offensive linemen agree with, you know, the opinion that it's more a defensive line drill than an offensive line drill, these one-on-ones, it's not super realistic that, the defensive line is just going to automatically know their pass rushing. So I think a lot of guys treat one-on-ones as a way to kind of work different stuff, whether it's a different set, different use of hands, whatever they can do to kind of throw the whoever they're going against off their game a little bit. And I think, with it being such a, pass rush first drill, obviously, you definitely have to really hone in your technique, I think, as well. So, with the reps, I think even a 50-50 win where like maybe they're driving into the quarterback or you're getting a little more depth than you would like, I think still counts as a win for the offensive line as long as you're, staying in front, keeping good body posture, just because it's such an unrealistic drill. But with that being said, I think there's still a lot of good things that can come from it. Just, being able to, you know, see what their best moves are is, they're probably going to give you their best pass rush in the one-on-one drills. So, kind of being able to study that and take that in and understand how to counter it, or if you have to set differently and or on different guys, stuff like that. So I think it's a beneficial drill. Definitely, biased towards the defensive line, I think, but I think there's still good things that can come from it for sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like you said, it's very rare at any level to know that you're going to be in a passing scenario. And then on top of that, being in a spot where these guys have infinitely more space than they're going to have at any level because there's nobody around you. But as for this rep in particular, there's a really great part of it that I love watching of you specifically. And that is after this rip down, your ability to kind of maintain your footwork and kind of re-anchor right here. I was wondering, like, where does this kind of lower body strength happen or come from because of the fact that he's pulling your jersey down trying to rip you down to kind of swim over you? And I was wondering, is that certain leg exercises? Is that just certain things in your technique? Where does that strength come from to kind of sit here, stand back up, and re-anchor at the end of this?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of like reactionary, which I think comes from, the drill work I would do in the off season. A lot of it, especially going against the Sac State defensive line, a lot of it was, power first. So we weren't getting too many finesse moves in team reps. There was a lot of just straight bull rush. So really working that bull hop is kind of what the terminology would be, is something I like to focus on in the off season, just because we would see, mostly power versus, finesse guys trying to, beat you around the edge for the most part. But I think that rep is just kind of, I think showcases my athletic ability overall. I think wasn't great with my hands. I think my initial set wasn't great, but I think all week in Mobile, I think I showed my recovery ability and kind of the tools I do have. While I think I'm still a pretty raw prospect, and there's a lot of stuff that technique wise, I think I need to improve on, especially in protection. But I think it's all fixable things, and I think there's a lot of intangible traits I have that I think especially show up in that clip. Just good body posture, good reactionary skills, I think. I think all stuff that will help me build a hopefully successful career.
Of course. I mean, that's one of the reasons I pulled it up. I mean, you're like you said, such a drill that's so stacked against you, but seeing that rep there and seeing your ability to kind of bounce back, it was something that immediately jumped out to me when I watched it live, and then also something I really wanted to pull up and harp on. And there's a lot more like examples of that kind of stuff, and seeing you kind of bounce back from something that doesn't initially go your way, or just you working in pass protection. And I wanted to pull up a specific clip here. Looking for it right now. Here it is. Um, I pulled up, there are countless examples of like just you, whether or not that there is somebody in front of you that either drops off, or you're playing a wide front, or you're handling a stunt, or even just working in like screen game and run game, you're constantly finding work. And I was wondering where that kind of instinct, where that was instilled in you, whether it's been instinctually, whether it was the coaches at Sac State, coaches even before that in high school. Where is it that you kind of learned that just like always be finding work, because it pops up so many times it ends up, extending plays for guys like your quarterback to go make a play here and get some extra yards?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the values we had as an offensive line there was, you always got to be doing something, as well as, help your brother out as well. I think working as a unit on the front five, it's a really unique, group in football. And you want to get help sometimes. You should probably help your buddies out sometimes too. That's what our line coach would say. Hey, go help your buddy if you're uncovered or whatever it may be. But I think that was like a six-man pro there, and all of our it was two guys were man. It was 3-on-2 slide going the other way. So whenever we were in the slide, it would always be help the tackle. So try and help the center get on, then go help the tackle. And whatever angle you need to take to help that tackle block that defensive end was kind of our coach gave us free reign there. So you want the tackle to overset and have them funnel inside to use the easiest one, but I think just with reps and playing a lot of guard at Sac State, kind of understanding where the help needs to be sometimes is something I learned, over time. So, I tried to help my guys as much as I can and, protect the quarterback for sure. So,
Of course. And just looking at this rep here, you said like, figuring out which way you're gonna have to help your offensive lineman, whether it's around the edge or ideally, like you said, funneling back inside. But you said that that starts with the center. So is your first responsibility usually inside then outside? Or how's that work in a protection like this?
yeah, so it kind of depends. On this one, it'd be an odd call for us. So I think we're sliding from the right guard over. We're all sliding left, and then the tackle is going to be one on one. Just look at it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but they're five up, so I think we're kind of treating this as you know man on until guys drop or the picture changes. So yeah, I mean on this rep with a head up nose, I'm not going to be able to help too much on the center. But let's say we had like a three tech, and it was
Yeah.
like an even front, then I'm punching the three tech, the center sliding with me. Hopefully, I'm punching him onto the center, and the center's handling him, and then I'm moving out to help the tackle. So.
Awesome. Love that. Love to hear it. Love that kind of, inside baseball kind of breakdown. Like they're about like even versus odd fronts. Like you said, you've kind of got five up right here, but with you running that full, like that four-man slide to the left, a lot of it ends up with you coming back, circling back to this tackle and making a play.
Mhm.
Moving on here, I've definitely got a few more that I'd love to talk to you about.
Yeah, let's do it.
Uh, this one isn't even necessarily the play call itself or the play itself, but a lot of your work at Sac State was you being a pulling guard, especially in
Yeah.
big time situations like here you're on the goal line in the red zone. And a lot of it was you pulling. What is the emphasis when it comes to plays like this where you're moving across the line of scrimmage, but you've still got to be able to get back downhill and kind of make a block coming across the field here and make contact.
Yeah, so a lot of our, short yardage goal line plays would end up being power was usually a go-to one for us. So you want to get as clear of a picture as you can, but when it's all bunched up like this, odds are you're not going to get a super clear picture. So the coaching point on these plays was, at the end of the day, you know, blast a hole somewhere, hopefully in the B or C gap. And I think I'm kind of trying to do that here. It wasn't a super clear picture. The aiming points usually that linebacker flowing over the top because we got the fullback kicking at the end, and it's usually the next guy is who I'm responsible for. So I'm watching that guy flow over the top and trying to insert there. But we've had a lot of strong running backs through the years that I was fortunate enough to block for. So hopefully I'm doing as much as I can, but he just takes it up the gut and scores, and that's what would happen most of the time. So
Yeah, I mean, like you said, not only was it just you pulling, it was a lot of power stuff, especially in these situations. And you were a lot of the times that kind of lead guy on power, working over the opposite side and trying to punch a gap open. And I just thought, not even necessarily just this play, but I wanted to bring it up because you were kind of that point of emphasis, often that guy moving and pulling. And it
yeah,
shows your mobility and strength in that area. And that moved on to the Senior Bowl in a bit of a different way as we pull up a practice clip here with a little tweet action from Brandon Thorne.
yeah,
This is you working the backside of outside zone, almost a completely different concept, but
yeah.
similar mobility with you kind of climbing to the second level here. I wanted to kind of talk with you through your thought process, kind of working out here, getting hands on this the getting hands on the guy that the tackle's working on right here on your outside shoulder, and then moving up to that next level and kind of making solid contact, using a little torque, spinning them out, and creating room for running back here.
Yeah, so I mean, at the start of the play, we got that backside three. So, again, kind of going back to that mindset is you want to be able to work together. You want to be able to help your buddy and have a successful play. But something our offensive line coach said in Mobile was don't fuck yourself to help your buddy. I'm not, putting a ton of it because, we're working to that middle linebacker right there. I think that'd be the Sam for us because we're pointing the mic is that guy just outside the box who they're taking their front side combo to. So I know I kind of got to get on my horse and get on a good angle to cut that guy off front side. And I was able to do that. I think kind of goes back to a lot of the stuff I did at Sac State was blocking in space. I think that's something they trusted me with a lot of the time, whether sometimes on outside zone, mid zone, but I'd say more often than not, it'd be on pin and pull or power or in the screen game. So I think having that experience and kind of starting to understand, angles a little better. I think it's something like I got, kind of could get away with at the FCS level sometimes. Maybe not take the most efficient angle every time, but still get the job done. And here I know the ball's trying to get outside, and our aiming point on it was front side armpit or play side armpit. So I'm just trying to get to that armpit and cut them off, and I was able to do that here. And running back takes it right in between me and Deli right there, and is a pretty good play. So
Yeah, it was definitely like one that I loved watching because I like seeing, your ability to kind of work up to that second level and hearing where your kind of angle is and where you're trying to get to. That was kind of the main question I had. So, moving on, there's been a lot of different plays that I have in here. So honestly, I'm gonna take a second, kind of find what I
yeah,
was looking for.
no
But
worries.
here again, this one again, probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. Again, working on your outside shoulder here, and your ability to not only when he tries to get inside, make strong contact with him, working him towards the center, then pulling up right here and getting skinny was like my favorite part of this was the fact that you're playing this so close to this three tech moving back inside, then pushing the second level and still getting to that second level linebacker. Another play where I kind of just want to hear your thought process and how you get so downhill here, because that's honestly the part that's so impressive to me is how you stay so skinny to this defensive lineman, move up to this linebacker, and make a big block that ends up, creating a crease for a great run.
Yeah, so I think this is just kind of our basic inside zone concept. We got that tight end swiping back for the end on the backside. So we're just in a what we would call a Louis call. A lot of I think the NFL terminology is a single on the front side of this inside zone. So we're basically comboing this three tech to the Mike linebacker there, number 8. And on the backside, they got a B to 7, and both guys are kind of spiking inside. But you don't want to leave the center hanging when that happens. So our footwork was always step, play side, and kind of react accordingly to what he was doing. So I'm taking that play side step, and then my second step, I'm trying to throw that flipper. Kind of miss a little bit, but I think I do enough to get our center on there, and he's a sticky guy, so he stuck to him throughout the play. And then once my job at the first level is done, it's hey, who'd we point it to? So I knew we were working at 8, and I was trying to get to 8 as square as I could, but he was kind of back fitting. So and I think I might have overran it a little bit, but I was just trying to get sticky at that point and hopefully cut him off, and I was able to do that. And Tao was a good running back for us this past year, and he was able to find the holes where they were. So good job on him for making me look good there.
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear you propping up your teammates, but yeah, I love just like even if you think you overran him at this point in the play, the ability to kind of stick it right here and give your running back a lane anyway on this inside zone. That was the kind of stuff that I thought was super impressive here.
Yep.
And the kind of stuff that we saw from you a lot, kind of working in space, whether it was on power or in this case, inside zone, like you said, and just a really strong play here. So, again, not necessarily the play in particular. However, obviously, I'd love to see like you pulling across the formation here, making a strong block, kicking this guy out, and giving your running back a hole. But in general, what is the kind of mindset, what kind of work goes into being able to in space kind of make strong contact, considering how difficult that is where you're trying to hit a moving target? Are there certain points on the field that you expect these guys to get to? I know you said earlier with the armpits that like when you were talking about the inside play side armpit, like that's a different angle for you on that outside zone play from earlier. What is kind of the teaching point to try to hit these guys considering they're moving in space like this and this guy's almost becoming a forced player trying to play this back inside?
Yeah, so it would really kind of depend on the play. So on this one is it's basically tight end wing power. You see that tight end wing on the front side. And on my job on this play is essentially, block the most dangerous man. It was my favorite play. I'm getting out in space, with a full head of steam, usually kicking out a nickel or something like on this play. Definitely, opportunity for highlight blocks on this one, which I think was why I liked it so much. Um, but yeah, so I mean, this one, I'm for the most part, I'm thinking kick out first on this power. It's usually a force player is who my job is to block. And usually it's just get them out of the picture and make a clear lane for the running back. So, I'd always try to come with a full head of steam. The death of a lot of guys in space is, trying to chop down and break down and, try and meet the guy slowly and not get juked. And that's really the recipe for getting juked, actually. So a lot of the times when I'm out in space on kind of, more quick hitting plays like this, I'm trying to get a full head of steam and meet the guy as fast as I can, and not really give him enough time to react. And I think I'm doing that there, getting him out of the picture, and making it clear for our running back there. So
Of course. And like that's exactly what I was kind of aiming for is where you find that balance between trying to slow down, maybe chopping a little bit before you get to them versus here you just kind of barreling downhill, like you said, getting
Yeah.
a bit of a highlight block on what you said was one of your, if you're not your favorite play. And I love to see that. And just, is that kind of what the mindset is for someone who's pulling, running power as kind of that lead guard? Is it primarily just make sure you keep that momentum and rather than trying to chop the feet?
Yeah, I think it depends on your aiming point a lot of the time. So when you got a clear kick out picture, maybe on counter or some power plays, and you're the pulling guard on those. I think more often than not, you just got to go at it with a full head of speed, and if you miss, you miss. But if you take the right angle and hit same foot, same shoulder, I think usually you're in a good spot. I think the chop down and kind of breaking down stuff, I think might show up more on, zone or gaps or zone or, just combo blocks in general, I would say. When you're working up to a second level guy with, whoever your buddy is on, whatever combo you got. I think it shows up a little bit more there. But I think at the end of the day, you gotta beat the guy to the spot. So if the best way of you doing it is chopping down versus meeting him with a full head of steam. Good on you. But that's something I feel full confidence in is like everyone plays football differently. So there's going to be coaching points you pick up along the way, and that you can maybe work into your game or maybe you don't like it. So this isn't the fully correct answer. I'd say it's just what's worked for me in my career. So that'd be how I would handle it for sure.
Of course. I mean, that's like you said, the kind of player you are. It shows on the tape as somebody who, is looking more to get downhill. And with that, do you think that you're not necessarily better suited, but do you think that in the modern NFL, with a lot of teams running more zone stuff, do you think that you enjoy more of the gap stuff more as far as your like favorite run plays and stuff that you would like to run more? Or do you think it's kind of just a split on where you kind of see yourself ending up?
Yeah, I think I can do well in both kinds of off in both schemes. So I mean, for me, honestly, my favorite play in football is when you make a good block and the running back uses it and it looks great on film. And I think in my film, it shows up in zone and gap schemes. So I wouldn't say I have a particular favorite one. I think, I'm a great second level blocker and I get out in space well, but I think that's something that shows up in both schemes, and depending on, what your job is on a particular play. So I think I could be successful in both. But yeah, I think, just making sure you're doing your job and having fun is, what's important for me at the end of the day.
What's going on, everybody? Just cutting to one final solo shot of myself. This interview, unfortunately, got cut a little bit short because a fire alarm in my apartment building did go off. But luckily, I was able to get through the film clips I wanted. Didn't get the chance to wrap up with Jackson, but I will say this: I really do appreciate Jackson Slater for coming on the pod. Love talking ball with him, run game concepts, pass game philosophies, kind of where he's aiming on certain plays. I really enjoyed talking ball with him, and I'm really excited to see the rest of his draft process. If you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, I really appreciate likes, subscribes, comments. Please let me know what you guys want to see next. More content is coming to the channel and more interviews specifically, so be on the lookout. Really appreciate you all for watching this far in the video, and have a good one. Peace.